Okay, here we go. Lesson 1-5. Got a little background music here going on. And hopefully that doesn't distract you. Today you're going to be working with rewriting equations. It's kind of like solving equations, but you won't get a nice simple numeric answer. You're going to have like letters on both sides of the equation. I'm showing you here a page of lots of formulas that you'll use next year in geometry. For example, the area of a trapezoid has a formula that's associated. The circumference or the volume of a circle or a cone. So this lesson prepares you for those lessons that are coming up next year. It's also going to help you later on in chapters 5 especially. All right, two things that the book uses terms, literal equation and formula. A literal equation is an equation that uses lots of variables. And by lots we mean more than one. And those variables usually have a meaning that they represent something. In formulas, right? There's lots of different formulas. Maybe you've heard of E equals mc squared. Well, you can see there's a lot of letters in there, so that is a literal equation, but in this case, each of those letters represent something. So the variables represent a quantity in life. All right. So here we go, a couple of famous formulas that you may end up using, not necessarily in this chapter, but you've heard of Fahrenheit and Celsius. We use Fahrenheit here in the US, but most of the world uses Celsius. And this is a formula that converts a Fahrenheit to a Celsius temperature. Distance equals rate times time. There's another one that you frequently use in science and in real life. So let's go to a couple of math problems now that you might have. Directions are going to say something like solve the literal equation for y. So notice we have a y and an x in the problem. Important that you kind of circle a y and then figure out, well, what do I need to get rid of? I need to get rid of the 2x. How do I get rid of that? Well, look, how is it joined? There's a minus sign. So again, Mr. Larson says, change that minus sign to plus -2. So then we're going to add 2x. Careful, looks like dividing, so I'm going to erase that line there. I'm going to add 2x to make it 0, and so I'm going to add 2x to this side. All right? So the 2x and the -2x cancel each other. All you're left with is a y on this side. Now on the right side, that's kind of crazy, don't add the 15 and the 2x. That is, don't combine them together. We're just going to write 15 plus 2x. In fact, it's probably better to switch those two around and put the variable first and the constant number by itself afterwards. Okay, so y equals 2x plus 15. Is the best answer for problem 1. Notice we got the y by itself, so we've solved it. Question number 3 here. Again, notice I have an x and a y. They want me to solve for this y. So that means I need to get rid of the 8, and I need to get rid of the 5 too. All right, we'll do this in a 2-step. First of all, we have to undo the 8 by adding -8. So I'm going to add -8 to both sides. The 8 and the -8 cancel. That gives me 0. So all I'm left with is 5y. On the right side, I've got 5x. I've got a -2 and a -8, which gives me -10. Now I got to get rid of the 5 still. before I can say the y is by itself, correct? So how do we get rid of that 5? Well, it's attached by multiplication, so we divide by 5. And here we divide both of those. Notice how I wrote a big fraction bar? And I put a 5 underneath there. Okay? So that means I'm going to divide the 5 into that, and I'm going to divide the 5 into the negative 10. Both of those get divided by 5. So 5 divided by 5 is 1x. And 5 goes into 10 twice. Don't forget about the negative sign. So there's my answer. It's kind of written backwards in that the y is on the right side by itself, but that's okay. Doesn't matter. The y is been isolated. So you've solved that. All right, well, we did 1 and 3 there. Let's go to number 7. Here again, it says solve the little equation for x this time. So here I've got a little equation. I don't know what the letters stand for, but I've got to get this x by itself. Well, I see there's 2 x's. That's a little bit scary. But we can see that, oh, I could just combine those x's together and get 6x. 10 minus 4 is 6. Now if I divide by 6, then we can see we get x, or 1x if you want, and then we have y over 6. Okay, simple enough. Number 10, same type of problem. I've got an x on both sides of the equation, so somehow I got to get them together. That's job 1. Remember, we're solving for x, so much like in the previous problem, we combined the 10x and the 4x. I got to do the same thing here, only this time I have to add negative 4x to both sides to cancel it from one side. Remember, they're on opposite sides of that equal sign, so that makes it a little bit trickier here. All right, so we end up with y on this side. 10x minus 4x is 6x minus 6. Okay, now we got to get rid of the negative 6, and we're going to do that by adding 6 to both sides. So we have y plus 6 equals 6x. And then the last thing we'll do is divide by 6. So notice, again, I've got to divide 2 things on the left side, the y and the 6. Yeah? So I've ran out of room. I'm going to put my answer over here. X, right? All we're left with is the x. And then on the left side we had y over 6. Whoops. Plus 6 over 6. And 6 over 6, I think, is just 1. Okay? Last 2 problems. Area of a triangle. So now we have a formula. And they want me to solve that formula for b. So that means I got to get rid of the h, and I got to get rid of the 1/2. All right, we'll get rid of them one at a time. Whoop. Let's get rid of the h first of all. It doesn't matter which one we get rid of first. I'm going to divide by h. So we end up with 1/2 b. Notice the h cancels. And then over here I've got a over h. Now to get rid of the 1/2, dividing by 1/2 is tricky, but multiplying by the reciprocal is super easy. Well, not super easy, but easier than dividing. So the 1/2 and the 2 over 1 cancel, yes? All I'm left with is b on that side. And then this side, we're just going to combine those pieces together, yeah? So a times 2, 2a over h. Notice lots of letters are left in my problem, right? b is equal to 2a over h. Okay, last one. This one here, I want to solve it for h. So I've got to get rid of 3 things. I think we can get rid of it in 2 steps. This time I'm going to get rid of the 1/3 first of all. Just because we did the 1/2 in the previous problem, so let's get rid of the 1/3. I'm going to multiply both sides by 3/1. So I'm left with pi r squared h, and this side I have 3 times v. Since the pi and the r squared are both connected by multiplication, we can get rid of them in 1 step actually, and we can just divide by pi and r squared. So I'm going to divide this side by pi and this side by r squared. Those cancel. So, very complex formula. 3v divided by pi divided by the radius squared is equal to the height. So this is a formula that helps me find the height if I know the volume and the radius of the cone. Ice cream cone, sounds delicious.